So about 14 months ago now, I dropped this video on screen. It's either here or here. I actually don't know where I put it on screen. And it honestly was the most divisive video that I've put out, right? And as I was reflecting and kind of looking at some of my past video essays, which are absolutely my favorite pieces of content to make for you guys, I'm always looking on ways to improve, right? Always looking on ways to make the best possible content that I can, and I'm reviewing it. And so I've been going through the comments in this particular video recently to see where the criticisms of the video were, and a lot of it, I'd say about 60% of it was just genuinely purely Sony fanboy tribalism, right? Sony fans are second to only Nintendo fans in the gaming world in terms of cope, right? Just pure cope that can be hashed out. But that's not what this video is. I'm here to talk more so about where the PSVR2 is in its current iteration and whether or not it is a headset that can be deemed as a success in the eyes of not us, the fans, but Sony, because honestly, guys, that is more important. Sure, for us, and let me be clear here, right? I absolutely love the PSVR2 as a headset. For the people in the comments on that video who were like, hey, it is, you know, you're just a guy who plays the Quest and thinks he knows VR. Got a PSVR1, PSVR2, Quest 2, Quest 3, Valve Index, Oculus Rift, right? This VR thing here, I fucking do this, right? That's what I do. I love the space, and the ultimate goal of this channel is to further the space and introduce people to just how amazing VR is, can, and will be in the future, right? And that's hopefully, because in order for it to continue to be successful moving forward, unfortunately, there's a few things that we're gonna have to live with, right? Meta's gonna be the industry leader for a while because they're the ones who are pumping all this money into the R&D. Valve, whatever they're working on behind the scenes, the Deckard's allegedly coming next year. We heard earlier reports of this year, but whenever they do finally announce it, if it's what we hope it is, which is a standalone PCVR headset, hopefully that can be a catalyst. But again, that's a pipe dream, right? For the moment, because there's nothing confirmed. Sony, the PSVR2 as a headset, fucking fantastic, right? The eye tracking, absolutely amazing. The haptic feedback, all of that, fantastic. The visual quality, it gives you that good jump from a Quest to closer to PC VR graphics. So I don't have any complaints about it as an actual headset itself, as a piece of technology. Now, that's not the question we're here to talk about, though. We are here to talk about whether or not the PSVR2 can be deemed a success or a failure in the eyes of ultimately the only ones who matter, right? Sony. Because ultimately they're the ones who are going to continue to invest, or as they've shown, not really invest into the space, right? But let's go with what we know, right? October of last year was the last time that we actually got some sort of concrete information with regards to sales figures, sitting somewhere around 2 million units, right? They then had a fantastic holiday season with an amazing spike year over year. This can be seen through the Amazon charts, the Google Trend charts, you know, just different sales metrics that they actually were able to divulge, because ultimately anytime these companies release sales information, it's when the sales information actually supports the narrative that, hey, we're doing well, we're doing good. Because let's not forget that aside from that 600,000 units moved in the first 6.5 to 8 months, you know, that we got initially, radio silent in the month since, right? But cool, we're working with that. So let's work with the assumption that that 2 million figure has jumped to about 3 million because they've had a fantastic sell. And this was one of the major points of contention with my video and my issues with Sony, was the price of the damn headset at the time was actually more than the PS5 itself. But sales drops, the bundles have dropped, and they've, even just by looking in the message boards and Discord, on Reddit, on social media, just talking to people, you can definitely see that a lot of people have actually been going out to grab these headsets, which is fantastic, right? So let's assume that as of now, they've probably did another, million units, right? So we're about 3 million headsets. In its lifespan, the PSVR 1 6 million headsets sold, right? We are now in year 3. Now, VR, the problem, unfortunately, isn't the headsets. I don't know when the developers are going to figure this out. This current iteration of headsets is just fine. That's the PSVR2, whatever Valve's got cooking up will count as this cycle 2, right? But even if we take that out, the Index, the Quest 2, the Quest 3, the 3S, the PSVR2, I'd exclude the Quest 2 personally, but if you're using it for PCVR, fine, right? But the problem is the games. And this was the major draw and the major selling point of the PSVR2 at launch, is that they were going to utilize first party, already established Sony IPs and bring them into VR. And we got a great look at this, right, with Horizon, which is absolutely the direction that we all expected Sony to go. It's kind of what they were leaning on. And as the months turned into a year, turned into 18 months, turned into 2 years, we have not seen that, right? What we have seen is a lot of ports from other platforms, right? A lot of ports from Quest platforms. We've seen a lot of ports from the PCVR space. And then we've seen a few new games, right, that have come out simultaneously across PCVR and PSVR2, such as Arcanage, right? Didn't touch the Quest platform. So that's a big win for Sony and its PSVR2. But we look at what we're still missing, right? We're still waiting on Demio battles. Finally got underdogs 2 years later. No more rainbows 18 months later. Still waiting on Exfil, right? So it's a weird space with the PSVR2. Some games are coming out at launch at the time across platforms simultaneously, but when the developers can only bring it to PCVR and one other platform, they're 9 times out of 10 going to choose the Quest, because honestly, that's where the money is. Now, Sony can counteract this by bringing in new users, which is, I guess, one of the points that I will step back just a bit from my video, because let's be clear, I agree still with about 90% of what I said in that video, but one point that I will back off is when I said that the PSVR2 has no meaningful games. I should have put the caveat in, unless you are an absolute first time to VR or a person who's only had a PSVR 1, right? The majority of the people who are buying the headsets, you know, for PCVR and trying to actually, you know, jump further into the actual space have already played a lot of the games that the PSVR2 is bringing up, right? We've already played Pavlov, right? We've already played Moss. We've already played Red Matter. We've already played Underdogs for 2 years now, once again, which is just coming out, which is a fantastic game. If you haven't played it, guys, Underdogs is a fantastic game, available across all platforms, not an ad or anything like that. I just actually really like that game. I think I did a video on it I did a review on it a while ago. I'll drop the description to that in the you know, drop the link to that in the description below, but I digress, right? So the PSVR2 is a great headset if you are a person who already owns a PlayStation 5, and there's 80 million of those floating around out there, right? So if you already own a PlayStation 5 and you've either had a PSVR or you've never had any type of VR interaction, this is going to be their main target base, right? Of people that they're trying to get to adopt into VR. Now, while it's a healthy base, it's not the same base and the same appeal as a standalone headset, right? Like the Quest 3. It's not going to be that. But when you look at the sales so far, and we're sitting at 3 million, and this holiday season and this run of games is actually just going to be a big year for VR in general, right? 2025, make no mistake of it, is a critical year for the future of the space, right? It's going to determine and decide whether some of the VR studios that we've seen stick around or restructure, such as nDreams, is going to continue to be viable and continue to be a player in the space, or I think we're going to start winding it down here for the short term, right? Short to midterm in terms of bigger games. It's really going to get back to a space where it's just all indie games or nothing. But again, that's not the point. Is the PSVR2 a success? In our eyes, I would say yes. In the eyes of Sony, I'm gonna say no. In the eyes of Sony, yes, the PSVR2 has been a failure, right? Not as successful as possible. Now, can they still turn this around? Absolutely. Again, 2025 in general for VR is going to be a big year. That means that these developers need to get games out there, not only that are good, but they cannot be broken at launch, because in this space particularly, first impressions are everything. We're already losing people's first impressions due to motion sickness, right? Because people jump in, they get sick, they don't want to get back in there and jump into it. I understand. There's been people in my life, personally, I've been trying to convert on this front. But first impressions in VR are everything. So they still have a chance, but there's a couple of things that they could do differently, and they should do differently, right? They need to, even if they don't want to develop them themselves, right? They need to put the money up and publish some of these games for VR. Some of their older titles, even get an Uncharted port, right? Get a spin-off of Uncharted, get a spin-off of Bloodborne, get a spin-off of something. Put the money up, to make this a space that people want to jump into. You have to put a few of your established IPs in there, because it's gonna give people a nice introductory point to actually jump into space. Batman is a great example of this for the Quest, right? Deadpool coming out soon is a great example of this for the Quest. I think that's going to bring more people into the space just off of name recognition alone, and they have to make sure that those games hit, which Batman did, hopefully Deadpool does, that game hits from the rip, because otherwise you're going to deject and turn off a lot of people from the space. Secondly, and this is just one thing lastly on this front, right, that I'm going to point out. If Sony had an estimated 200 to 400 million, and they say they only put up half of the money, so $200 million to put into fucking Concord, break that down. Let's get a little bit of funding, even just take 20 million of that, right? Give them 180 million to put out that bullshit. And we could take 20 million and pump it into a couple of VR studios, and let's get some quality games. There are some interesting looking ones, Reach coming out this year, right? So there are some interesting games in the pipeline. My fear is that Sony will take the Vita approach, and yes, shades of gray matter. This is for you, right? You are my absolute favorite person in the comments. You're always insightful, definitely well worded in everything, and you have some great opinions about VR and just gaming in general. So I fuck with you for that. I rock with you, right? But my Vita point, it's not cliche, right? The problem is this. The reason why it gets compared to the Vita is a couple of reasons. It's an excellent piece of technology, right? It may be a cycle ahead of its time, not in terms of specifications or anything with this one, but in terms of demand for the PSVR2, right? They might have been either one cycle too early or one cycle too late, which is actually the funny thing about where VR is right now at this current point in time. But the Vita comparison is an excellent comparison for a few reasons. First of all, there was a comment in there, and I'll throw it on screen maybe. I don't know if I can be pressed to find it, where a gentleman said, oh, the Vita's been out for 9 years. That's unequivocally false, right? Even if you're going from the Japanese release, that would be December 11th of 2011? Yeah, December 11th, 2011. And the actual the Vita itself went down March 1st, 2019, right? So doing a little bit of math, that's 7 and some change. But most people are going from the worldwide release, which was February of the following year, which would be 2012. So then you get 7 years a month, 7 years a month. No, not even a month, 7 years and some days that it was actually out. In that time span, Sony published 28 different games, which sounds cool when you realize 26 of them were in its first 2 years, worldwide release, 2012 to 2014, and then absolutely nothing. You can go back into archives and look at people, and I'll throw a few of these on screen, but you can go back and see that this was an issue then, and you can see the similarities starting to pan out. This was a product that was abandoned for its last 5 years running in production by the people that actually owned it, right? as obviously they're pretty busy. PS3 was rocking, PS4 was coming out, understandable, and they've gone as much to say so, but this is why that particular comparison hits so hard with regards to the PSVR2 and how that seemingly is being handled, because again, lack of support. It seems like they're finally pivoting to PCVR, which was another disastrous decision not to bring PCVR adapter, but why wasn't it available at launch? That's another space where it was the Quest may have been able to differentiate itself, because hey, I can go play all my PCVR titles with the Quest 3, couldn't do that with the PSVR 2, lose some of the functions and the abilities, but big mistake in that regard. But it's great that they do that. We don't want to see that occur. So that's all I really got for you. I know it was a little wordy. I actually ranted a little bit longer than I intended to today. We got back to the regularly scheduled content. I got a great announcement coming for you guys, hopefully in a few weeks here. Big project that we're working on for the channel. I keep saying we're like it's me. It's just me. I'm rocking out, man. But no, as always, man, I do appreciate you guys watching. It's really all I gotta say, man. Catch y'all next time.